Professor Sigmund, this is Brent Hannig again, assignment number 4. Now, I've learned a lot about art this past couple of months. Only thing I knew about any kind of painting was when I've done home projects or work projects with a can of paint and a paintbrush in my hand. So it's been really good to be able to learn about some artistic things and to be able to see just past an image that is painted on a canvas. So again, I'm going to do a little presentation and narrate behind it, and then I'll say a couple things at the end. I think this assignment that you gave us was a lot about looking beyond the canvas and being able to get the concepts, ideas, meaning, not only from the artist's perspective, but also from the viewer's perspective. You gave us an option of studying different artists, and the one I chose was Mark Rothko. I watched the YouTube, more or less a biography on him, and I thought it was very interesting. I see a lot more in his paintings than ever. Had you showed me one of his paintings a few weeks ago, it would have just seemed blah to me. So I think some of the meaning behind what these artists put on canvas, had I viewed this picture a month ago, 6 weeks ago, it would have just looked like, to me, like a bunch of boxes with no meaning behind it. But having had this assignment for the past couple weeks, it's been very enlightening on how to view a picture, what can I see beyond just what the lines are painted on a canvas, and try and get some meaning out of that. This was a very good lesson for me. The topic of this is also obviously the creativity of Mark Rothko, but you know, the point of the lesson is there can be more to an object other than what is seen on the surface, and I think that's what this assignment's been all about. So with an artist, where do they get their perspective from? A lot of that I think has to do with their history, how they were brought up, what their demographics were. In the case of Rothko, you know, him being an immigrant with parents, he had some opportunities that some may not have had, but he chose the artistic side of his education and wasn't worried so much about the scholastic side of it. The way he was brought up definitely influenced his art. He didn't know, for example, which direction he wanted to go with his art, it seems like, in his younger years of being an artist, until he finally broke through back in 1959. But some of the paintings that we can see from him that came from around 1958, for example, this one, The People in the Subways, I really like the fact that he doesn't have any distinct lines in his photos. It almost looks like to me like these are spirit figures or ghosts, just going through the humdrum life, the same routine day after day after day. No passion behind what they're doing. Maybe some fear, maybe some boredom, maybe some resentments behind what they're doing. So I can get that out of all this. He's not a linear painter. He doesn't seem to paint in any like definitive lines. Everything's kind of, his edges are blurred out a little bit. And so, you know, I think he was, at this point in his life, was having a hard time figuring out exactly what he wanted his drawings to be and to mean to others. Looking back through all the paintings and stuff that he's produced, it seems like his style definitely changed. This is one of his earlier paintings prior to, I assume it's prior to getting hired by Seagram's to paint in his cafeteria. So he was trying to, you know, paint with his eyes more than with his thoughts and his feelings. And it seems like once he transferred over to the other side of that he was able to paint more with his feelings and paint more with the images that he had in his head that he couldn't define, but he felt like were in there. This is one of the paintings that came about the time I think that he had his transformation into what did he want his art to be defined as. His whole goal was to get to the simple human emotions: anger, happiness, joy, sadness, tears, whether they were tears of joy or tears of sadness. This is what he was trying to portray, and obviously based on some of the words out of his interview, this is what he was trying to get out of the viewer too. He felt like if he could get someone to shed tears of joy when he intended the painting to shed tears of joy, that his goal was accomplished. Mark Rothko had a lot of different thoughts going through his mind. I think he was confused. He didn't know how to accept the offer when Seagram's offered him thousands of dollars to leave some paintings in the cafeteria. Seemed like he worked really hard on trying to get these paintings together, but this artist wasn't about money. This artist was about getting a feeling across, or getting an idea across to the viewer. And it seems like that he had some devious plans to, or some devious thoughts, that he would be staring down on all these people that had all this money and lived this high style life, and that's one of the objectives that he wanted to create in his paintings, was to be able to look down on these people. He did have a change of heart and decided that he didn't want them to be looking at his paintings, whether he didn't feel like they deserved to look at what he had created, or more importantly, I feel like he didn't feel like they would appreciate the meaning and the thoughts and the concepts behind his paintings. So that kind of took him out of the social world. He wanted his paintings to portray that they would come to life, or that they would die, or maybe that they would do both as the viewer was looking at it. Some people could say his thoughts were crazy. 2 months ago I would have thought his thoughts were crazy. He always had an image in his head, but he could never create that image or define that image. So that's what I think his painting tried to get out of him. It seems like he was bitter against society. I don't know if because their perception of, or not appreciative of being of the art that he was creating. I think his point with a lot of his art is that, you know what, everybody's looking for a meaning in life, and maybe that meaning is in being still and being able to not try and search for an answer. Just be still and let your thoughts come as they may, whether it's subconscious or from a divine power or whatever the case may be. The paintings that he did in the Houston Chapel towards the end of his, what I assumed were his painting career, were pretty gloomy, and I feel like this was a portrayal of his life, to where things were going downhill and he was at the end of his rope. He didn't feel the enthusiasm, he didn't feel the hope, he didn't have the dreams that he did 20 years ago, and I feel like some of these paintings can definitely portray that. So Professor, this is the end of my presentation 4. I hope you enjoyed it, and you know, the transformation that's taken place with me is today I was in Ely, Nevada with my wife, and as we were leaving one of the buildings, there was an artist had created a kind of a sculpture on the side of one of the buildings, and I was thinking to myself, what was his intention? What did he want the viewer to get out of that? What did he want to portray from himself out of that? So there's been a change taking place, and I'm eager to make the next transition and to be more artistic in how I view a lot of things. Thank you. Have a good week.